Hey guys, it's Matt. Today we're going to talk about who's in on it, and it's very conspiratorial in and of itself. People just tuning in, people in on it, conspiracy stuff all the time. Well, the fact is, almost nobody's in on it. Yet, the conspiracy that we think exists in much grander form than we ever thought was humanly possible. Everything we've ever labeled as conspiracy or having abnormal means or can't be explained by human beings just making phone calls between each other, sending tweets and faxes and emails, all that conspiracy exists. But it's pretty clear to me that in terms of who's in on it, you've heard me for what, a year and a half now say very, very, very few, but it's actually many, far, far less than you would think. So let's just stop for a second and get back to the basic principle of where you've heard me talk for 2.5 years about not going far enough. We always make the mistake to not go, we never go far enough. And has this rule ever been violated? Ever been violated? So if you look at the 7-Eleven job application event, throw a dart, pick one out of a hat, and you say, initially when you start looking at it, maybe some people started 5 years ago or 10 years ago, initially you may say, there's something, odd about the event itself, something supernatural or dark in ways that just goes beyond, again, like we said, human beings making phone calls to plan it out. And just so if you start going there, you might say, okay, it was mostly planned out by Hillary Clinton types making phone calls between each other. But there's something we just can't put our finger on, some dark element that's not explained between the bookends of known human reality. You might say that's a 2 out of 10. It's mostly accomplished just by people passing sticky notes between each other. But there's this element we're not going to be able to explain. So over time, see, we never go far enough. As we look at it over the years, that dark element that can't be explained, that doesn't fit inside the bookends of known reality, gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Reality breakdowns, reality anomalies, things that couldn't possibly accomplish by people just making phone calls. And then the portion that's just regular people talking and planning in back rooms. Jared, more coffee. Coffee. That part of that part gets less and less and less and less. So, we never go far enough. If you think this event over here is just completely creepy, you'll come back a year or two later and think it's double as creepy. So you can apply that again. First of all, has that ever been broken? Have you ever gone and said, "Oh, all of these are all staged events," and said, "No, you know what? As I looked at them, I found out that most of them were real, and I'm going to back off my position." It's always the other way. We never go far enough, and the same can be applied to who's in on it. Now, I'm not just saying that I think hardly anybody is in on it consciously in it. They're all in on it, but they're not. They carry out the wishes of the reality or the not nilk without. They know not what they do. That's basically what I'm saying. They're all in on it. Your neighbor's in on it. I mean, just carrying out the wishes of what this reality wants. He's not plotting with Hillary Clinton, but in terms of doing everything that this reality wants, brand new 85-inch smart TV, we just have one more day, honey, when we can get the new iPhone. We have to wait till tomorrow, one more day, and then run to the Apple Store. In terms of doing everything the reality wants, they're in on it. They know not what they do, but that's the purpose. But almost everybody know not what they do, if that made any sense. But we never go far enough. So we can apply we never go far enough to the same conversation we've had many times over the years trying to understand, who's in on it. And the first grade truther or somebody new thinks that, again, it's just men and women, the way the entire reality works, the only thing they can understand within their bookends, just men and women in back rooms plotting and planning and phone calls and tweets and faxes and emails and things like that. And of course, it's secret societies and councils of this and councils of that, and dark elements inside the ancient families. It's always it is very natural for a first grade truther to always have to put it inside the bookends of whatever they understand. Well, most things in this world, when you dig down far enough, most things operate far outside the bookends of what anyone understands. So once you understand this is how the world works, plus we always undershoot the mark of who's in on it, it's not going to go the other way. It's not going to be like everybody's in on it. Everybody has an understanding. Even the guy down the main street here that has the giant furniture outlet, his family's been in this furniture business and dominated the retail business in my town for many decades. He's been, he goes to Kiwanis Club meetings. He has an understanding. No, it's the opposite of that. It's the opposite of that, in my opinion. If you George W. Bush knows far less about how this world really works than you would think. See, this is the opposite. It's the concept of we never go far enough, but in this case, it's kind of working the other way. These, and definitely in terms of anybody you see on TV. If you see someone on TV like Melvin P. or whatever, inside, I'll stick to this like I've said before, inside their little sphere of control or their little bucket, they have an understanding of some sense, but they're not able to back up far enough to see how the entire reality functions, in my opinion. I know it sounds arrogant, but I think there's people in this community, we have a better understanding of generally how the nature of this reality works than these top minions. They understand their bucket far greater than we do. I mean, like I've said before, like a Glenn Beck. Glenn Beck understands there's no Republican Party at odds with the Democrat Party. It's all a gigantic show making people to believe there's liberty and freedom and things like that. And Nancy Pelosi doesn't really hate Mitch McConnell. And I mean, it's just, in the end of the day, they probably sip the same $10,000 bottle of cognac. Glenn Beck understands that in his little circle. And I think that's the case with almost everything. But I don't think, like Anderson on CNN, he'll do some major event happened and he'll go interview the families. He knows that is bull crap. Whatever he's up there running around doing his interviews, but he doesn't have any understanding, in my opinion, outside of his little bucket. So I'm going to continue to stick to we never go far enough, and far less even a Hillary Clinton. Okay, we're talking a top minion from the lower planes of the nine hells. Even somebody like that, I think inside her bucket, she is, a major demon, has major controls, understands the presentation of politics and the act associated with it. But in terms of outside of that, generally, I don't think they understand. I think that is potentially the doomed role of the minion level. And as we back up farther and farther from it and look down on it, we will get over time a greater understanding than these idiot minions, in my opinion, because we can see at the highest level what the entire reality is doing. And see, the reason it's simply it's like a radio station, and I have an old receiver downstairs that I just dusted off because I have this nostalgia. The thing, I don't know if it's a Kenwood or the old Techniques, the old Pioneer, they turn dials. You have to turn the dial to change the radio station. Like big thing that it weighs, I don't know, it's like 60 pounds. It'll last forever. It's a receiver that drives speakers, and it's simply radio station, guys. This is why the reality is very successful nowadays at moving almost everybody onto its radio station, or their tuning forks. Everyone's tuning fork, it just resonates and syncs up with what the reality wants. Like we've heard the story that if you hit a tuning fork and it's big enough, or of a certain frequency, and there's others of the same tuning. You know what I'm saying? I'm not an expert at this. Others start ringing as well, and that's what the reality does. Now we have no chance to ring on that frequency. We're so far off that frequency. We're not compatible with the entire reality. We've announced ourselves, and I think it's a good idea to do it formally, to talk and say, I am not compatible with this reality. Even if we've done that in deed or in gesture and in action, if we haven't done it formally, I think it's a good idea to do it formally and pop your head up out of the water and say, I ain't compatible with this shit at all. It's just in every way. There's no half measures. In every way, I'm very proud to prove. And not to prove to myself, we already know we're not compatible with it, but to demonstrate daily that I'm not compatible with it. So it has everybody tuned together, and it moves, it moves everybody, puts everybody at a certain frequency on the radio station. And then you could say, as you turn the dial down, or let's say the dial's here, turn the dial down, what's the bottom of the FM dial, like 88 something. And the human being, in terms of its spiritual connection, in terms of understanding its true nature, we look at ancient text or ancient cultures, we all get the sense that the human being had a pretty good understanding that this is just some temporary vessel, the immortal aspect of itself, the spiritual aspect of itself. And the reality is very patient. And again, we keep saying, if anybody's new here going, the reality, what's he talking about? I call Clinton backwards is not NILC. It's just a collective reality. There's nothing you can point at. There's no bad guy sitting in the back room or making phone calls, and there's no boss level of a video game. It's just we don't know how it works. You just have to. It's like it's alive. It works through its little jerks, like Melvin P. It works through its Ellens it works through thousands and tens of thousands of different systems and mechanisms and minions to accomplish its one goal. Its one goal seems to be very simple, just simply it links up as many people as possible. In this conversation, we're not going to get into who's real, who's not, who's an NPC, who's a Selma Hayek fake generated person, FGP. We're not going to get into that. Assume everybody is real. Sync them on a radio station and slowly turn the dial on the reality. Slowly turn the dial down towards whatever is at the bottom of the FM, 88, whatever. And you could say the reality's goal in this game is get everybody synced up. Then as it turns the dial, the people will go along with it. Okay, we don't go along with it. That's why we're freaks to everybody around us at this point. If it turns the dial of everybody, can suck everybody down to 88 point whatever at the bottom, then you've heard me talk about go into the abyss. People have lost at that point, and somebody's screaming at me going, Matt, they're closer to 88 right now than you think. Maybe, but at that point they've lost all sense of them being anything other than this life, this body, this avatar. And if there's any spiritual nature of them left, it won't be, if they can suck everybody down to the bottom of the FM dial, it won't be anybody finding it within themselves. They'll be begging a gigantic religious infrastructure to give it to them. That's the best spiritual anybody will ever be able to come up with, if they can sync everybody up and suck everybody back down to the bottom of the dial. So this is like the Andy example, where we're over, we're down the dial a bit. We've been indoctrinated and introduced to these systems, and we went through K through 12 and all that brainwashing. We're not, we're down the dial. Our goal is to get back up the dial, close to spiritual realizations about ourselves. But I've said in this environment, It's so harsh, it's so nasty, it's so hardcore brutal that just holding on may be good enough right now. Maybe for right now, I don't know, for somebody a year or two, or just make sure you don't get sucked down the dial. That's overall that's not good enough, but it's not bad either. Just to jump off. This dial is being turned down to 88 points. So I'm going to just jump off, and I'm going to hang wherever you are at 96 point whatever, 98 point whatever, 102, and that is its goal. It's very simple. It really is very simple, and it crafts a gigantic trick, manipulation, and illusion in every sense of everything that we think is real. It's is not, and its bag of tricks is just, it's so beyond anything anyone could fathom. This is why nobody believes this could possibly be happening or could be real. It's just, you want to talk about beyond the bookends of what anybody can understand. I mean, it's just like, somebody might say, well, I don't know, if you deliver, here are my bookends. If you deliver me something a few inches outside my bookend over here, I'll probably consider. What we're talking about is like over in Madagascar. It's that far outside the bookends. It's so big, people can't see it. It's sleeping. They're sleeping on King Kong's back. Where we get this nice bear rug, honey? They're sleeping on King Kong's back. It's so big they can't see it. They can't see it. But then we've jumped off, and we're stuck. Okay, we're still on our whatever our frequency was, and hopefully trying to improve ourselves. Go up the dial on my old Kenwood or whatever big turn the damn dial receiver. We're trying to go up the dial, so everybody collectively is going. And guys, I haven't even delivered one of the main reasons. The main reason that got me to talk about this topic is a big one in terms of supporting the words that are coming out of my mouth. It's a big one, so I hope I don't forget. So, it wants to turn the dial down. We've jumped off. So we look, I think I lost my train of thought. I'll come back, but this is a more important point. We look like freaks to everybody around us. Complete freaks, because they're all going down the dial together. And it was a slow turn of the dial, right? It was a very slow turn of the dial when we were born, and depending how old you are, in the 60s, 70s, 80s. A very slow turn of the dial. But somehow the dial turning is just on steroids. It seems like what they need to get everybody over into, or maybe they're running out of time to get everybody down to 88 point whatever. They're like cranking the dial. It's moving so fast, and people are being sucked down, and it's all normal. And we've jumped off, so we get farther and farther and farther away from where the dial is. This is similar to the example when I gave Andy. The reality changes, and everybody goes along with it. That's like the same analogy as jumping onto the dial and then going along with the dial as it's turned down towards the abyss. We become absolute freaks. And I said a few months ago, guys, remember I said, in terms of who's the freak and who's not, we actually are the freaks in this reality, because what's normal, or the new, what's normal, the new, is where everybody's going. This is what's normal. We're not normal. We jumped off. We're in the ultra minority. So in terms of from the reality's perspective, and what other perspective, well, you can do from your own perspective, of course. From our own perspective, of course. We're not freaks. We see things clearly. We drop veils, of course. But the perspective that rules here is the perspective of the reality, the greater reality itself. From its perspective, we absolutely are the freaks. It makes perfect sense why we're considered nuts and all that. But that's fine. We don't need to prove it to people anymore. They can't see it. I have to go back and read Ken's latest email to me. It's just, it doesn't make any sense. They just can't see it. I mean, the basics. I don't know. I'll leave Ken out of it for now. I guess he got upset at me for something. I got to go back and read his email. I was like, you're not even addressing the main point of what I was trying to communicate. It's like words come out of our mouth, and whatever my neighbor hears over here, or this guy hears, who knows what they hear? Who knows what they hear if we're that far off the frequency? Where, I don't know. Guys, the main, yeah, let's not forget the most important point. Why did I even want to make this video? And what drove me to make this video is, I don't watch much news. I'm going to start watching a little bit more once we get everything up and going on Free Voice. I might be interpreting, the news a bit more in terms of what I think, they're trying to devolve reality down to. I have kind of stayed away from it because the news is so difficult for people like us to watch. It's such a horrible frequency. I don't know the word. It's not depressing. It's just a sickness. It makes you ill when you watch the news, and you can just, even though there's many truths presented in the news, buried inside the lies, we can just see the overall goal of the news and the manipulation behind the news, and how it's just a main tool for them to put people on the radio frequency dial and to turn it downwards towards the abyss that we literally makes people like me and you sick when we watch it. But the point is, I'm going to have to start watching a little bit more. But I was watching because I know they would lead with what was happening in Texas, which was very interesting to me for several reasons. And I watched the Texas news, probably the world news, with Nora 4 nights in a row. Overall, I've seen it about 5 times in the last 7 or 8 days, but definitely 4 nights in a row during the heart of the Texas thing. And they'll start by saying, and it's just incredible, like what temperatures did Texas reach? Incredible. I mean, I never thought the state could even approach 0. I just, we barely ever approach 0 in Pennsylvania. But after the first 3, 4, 5 minutes of showing broken, busted pipes and trucks sliding around, like the same stuff they'll show every time, they immediately worked in the Carl Weathers starring in the late 1980s movie Action Jackson Nation. They worked in talking about the movie Action Jackson Nation into the story, in the middle of the story, about the broken pipes and the freezing temperatures, and every night they did it, that people can't get to their centers. And it's like it had to be in the middle of the weather story. It couldn't be a separate story after the first commercial break, or we'd like to, what's happening in Texas? Well, this is leading people not to be able to get to the center so they can rent the Blockbuster Video as a 99-cent sale on the Carl Weathers movie Action Jackson. They can't rent it because of they worked it into the middle of it. Now, I'm watching this going, come here, Zara. Come here, Zara. Come here, Zara. Somebody wants to see you. Come here, Zara. A few people want to say, where's Zara? All this Puss in Boots stuff. Zara's around. See, I'm watching this, and I'm going, again, to work it into the middle of the story, it's just not how the reality operates. Nora's about to go live. Norah O'Donnell's about to go live presenting the evening news, and she gets a phone call from the red bat phone, which is the red one's from the Rockefellers and the blue one's from the Rothschilds. So make sure you work the Action Jackson Nation story right into the middle of what people are tuning in for to see what's happening in Texas. And see, it's just, guys, in many cases, there is a little bit more human plotting and planning than maybe I'm giving it credit for, but it's just how the reality works. In this case, I don't think anybody made a phone call. Okay? I just think that people that are tuned to the frequency, the most important thing to this reality, the way it's designed to work human beings over at this point, is to get everybody to believe 100% about the narrative, the C narrative. That is, it has one goal right now, and every other goal is way, way, way down the list. It will take every opportunity, use every commercial. Why was State Farm talking about new normal a few weeks into the event in 2020? Like, I'll say to Ken or Tony, well, how did they know? Isn't that weird? Why would you even use those words if you're advertising insurance? Shouldn't they just be in the insurance business? Just tell you how good their claim service is? Like, why would they even get involved in that? Who approved that language? But as many times as we think it's called in, and maybe I want to say maybe I'm going a little too far, because sometimes I guess it is called in, but we never go far enough. It's just people on the reality frequency, they will do it on their own. Nora will come in with the production people for the news, and without any plotting or planning, or let's get them and let's insert this. It's just natural for these people to insert people who couldn't get to their Action Jackson centers right in the middle of the weather story 4 days in a row. There was nothing. I think if you put them on a lie detector and you say, do you see how you're just over the top pushing the C narrative when it really shouldn't even be part of the snowstorm story? Maybe you should talk about that 5 minutes after. And, it's not necessary to embed that right in the middle or right after the truck just slid off the road when we're talking about the weather event in Texas. They wouldn't see it, I don't think. They wouldn't understand it. They would think it's completely normal for the people that can't get to the center, so they can't rent the Action Jackson movie, to be right in the middle. And I think if you put them on a lie detector, they would go, this conspiracy person saying, like, I'm trying to implant something, or trying to every chance I get to highlight the C story. They would say, what are these people? These conspiracy people are crazy, and they wouldn't be like lying on the lie detector test. They would just what they're doing to the endless minions that carry out the will of this reality. What they're doing is completely normal. We don't know how the reality sees to this. We'll never know. But the police lineup, there is nobody to point at. All right, and at least not inside the reality itself. Maybe there's something outside of the reality itself that has structured the entire thing, or a Christian would say Satan or whatever. But we're here in the entire reality. There is nothing to point at. You can't, Rockefellers or Rothschilds or ancient families or council this. You can point at them. They're minions that carry out the overarching goal to turn the human being down the dial. There's nothing to point at. All right? But it was just what drove me to make this video was I started watching the weather, and I think actually they do the lead into the news, like, tonight breaking news, Texas, blah blah. They'll do the bullet points, and then right after the first bullet point, that millions of people, their houses are going to 18 degrees inside because it's 0 outside. They have no power, no water. Like right after the first 10-second bullet points, and they're like, "And Texas can't get to the centers. They cannot rent Carl Weathers' Action Jackson movie at Blockbuster for 99 cents. They cannot get out and get the VHS tape." They put it right there. Like, why is that there? I'm like, that's not put there just by people making phone calls. It's just the reality seeing to this. It's fascinating. It's absolutely effing fascinating. Guys, I'm still working on the History of the World Part 2. That will be on, get everybody used to free voice. There's no charge or anything. Just like last time. Anybody that gave their information to nohobocode.com, anybody that gave their information will get an email in, I don't know. The weather it seems like the weather's about to break. It's been crazy, but I don't know, probably this weekend or so they'll get an email saying when it'll be available, or it's available, or you'll get the email when it's live at freevoice.io. It's been a slow transition over. Rob's got the platform ready. This YouTube channel won't go anywhere, but in terms of anything that I think would be kind of, from a censorship perspective, dangerous to talk about, I'm going to have to do it over at Free Voice. So we look forward to ramping up that platform just within a few weeks. I think that's it. Thanks, guys, and I'll be back definitely Thursday, I would say. I don't think I can make a video tomorrow, Wednesday. Bye.